I don't think I ever went through a transformation so far.
Going between middle school and high school, I did want to change myself. There were things that I needed to do to mature and grow up.
Before high school, I was very dependent on my friends, and I was always with them. But once I went to a different high school than all of my friends, so I had to be very independent. So I learned to be independent and depend on myself more.
Getting better grades and stay in school.
There was times where I was just making a lot of wrong decisions for my future.
I haven't gone through that, I want to transform something, but I've been through where I want to go back in the past and change things that I've done.
I want to change myself when I like somebody, but obviously that didn't work out, and I would never ever again do that.
I wanted to transform my life to become more positive because I'm usually negative a lot.
There's not been a time where I want to change myself. I'm pretty happy with what I have and who I am.
I wanted to become a better person or make a difference in more people's lives. My faith is a big part of it, and just a lot of inspirational quotes and things like that I've heard.
I remember when I was younger, I really wanted to change my face, which obviously you can't change your face without going to drastic measures, because I had a lot of acne because it was hereditary. And so I remember asking my mom to go to a dermatologist to get medicine for it. So eventually I did, but I went through all those changes just so I could change myself and I wouldn't be made fun of anymore.
For me, it was just my hair. I went from the short, spiky hair to the whole, and everyone was straightening in their hair, that whole face. But then one day, it's I came out of the pool and my hair was curly, and I realized the girls like the curls, So I stick with my hair now.
Have you ever tried to change something about yourself?
Was it your hair color?
How about your style?
Or a bad habit?
What about your spirituality and your relationship with God?
Have you ever tried to change or transform it in order to grow closer to God?
Transformer spirituality. Rebuild. That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Carolee.
And I'm Justin.
And this is Real Faith TV.
Our spotlight guest today is Lauren Puzin.
Lauren is a young adult community facilitator at Old St. John's Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
She will tell us about the times in her life when she went through spiritual transformations.
We'll meet her and the teens on the street a little later in the show.
But first, let's meet our studio guests.
Sounds good. Today we have with us John, Ryan, Monique, Nick, Annie, Rick, and Allie.
So have any of you ever wanted to actually change or transform yourselves?
I'm adopted, and I really wanted to change the color of my skin because I really wanted to be like the color of my family, because I felt like the oddball. I felt left out, like I didn't belong. And then walking around town, just shopping, I noticed so many families who had adopted other kids, from Mexico or from China, or kids like me, African American. And then I realized that I'm not an oddball, I'm not different, and I learned to live with my family, and I began to love them for who I was.
Something that I changed about myself a lot was my hair. When I was younger, I had straight across bangs, and people always made fun of me for them. So I grew my bangs out right as bangs were coming in again. So then I cut it off, and then bangs went out. It's something that I think about and I'm really self-conscious about.
When I was younger, my teeth were a mess. It looked like a picket fence through a tornado. And I still am self-conscious about my teeth, and they're really yellow. So what I did is, my uncle's a dentist. He gave me prescription bleach to make them white. So.
I honestly can't remember a time that I haven't wanted to change. I think I've tried every dye in the book. I've dyed my hair bright red. I changed my laugh once. I went through 3 different laughs, and my friends were like, oh my gosh, you have to stop.
What about our faith? Have you ever tried to transform or change so that you could be closer to God?
Let's find out how the teens on the street answered this question.
Let's go to the wall.
Yeah, I'm always trying to grow in my faith and get closer to God. It's kind of a daily thing.
No, I go to church sometimes.
When I was younger, church was more of a chore or something I didn't want to do, and now it's a choice that I have. After going through my confirmation, they said, now it's your choice. You can either go to church or not, and I'm still going.
I honestly haven't gone to church too much, but I guess I've tried. So I've tried a little bit to transform myself.
I tried going to a youth group for a while with my friends just to see what it was like and go to church. And it's something I would do, just not on a daily basis.
I felt like things were just like getting to like a dark place. So then I just looked out and decided that I needed more faith in my life.
I think it's like an everyday struggle. You want to constantly do what you think is right by the church and your religion and God.
I remember in 8th grade when I got my confirmation, that was a big turning point in my life when I made faith a larger part of my life. I made an attempt to pray every night and just go to church more often and things like that.
I couldn't believe how many of the teens on the street actually wanted to grow closer to God, which I was really gladly surprised.
Yeah, I thought that was great. They all seem very like genuine about it.
Yeah. Our spotlight guest, Lauren, has gone on quite a few faith transformations in her life.
As a teenager, she found that being active in her church youth group helped to transform her,
as well as her college years.
Let's meet her now.
I was out of the ordinary from the rest of my friends in school. My youth group was a place of comfort for me. People were nice, they were loving, they were accepting of me, and as much ridicule as I may have been given from my friends in my public school for going to church group, I knew in my heart that felt right, that I could experience myself in that space. College was a transformation for me. The fact that I could find my faith at the University of Scranton, I was able to really embrace my spirituality and learn more about it, learn more about social justice and what that meant. In my experience of going to the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, I could have listened to my parents saying, "It's time for you to get a job now." But I listened to my heart, and even though other people may have been saying different things, I prayed about it. I think that's probably one of the most important things for transformation is if by talking to other people and your friends and your family, you can't find a place of comfort for yourself, which I think we try to do that first. What I think we really need to do first is talk to God and say, this is what I'm thinking, this is how I'm feeling, I don't know where to go with this, help me, show me. And then we're more open to that transformation.
So can any of you guys think of a specific time when you tried to change something about yourself in order to grow closer to God?
When I was a freshman in high school, going to senior year now, it was, I wasn't the best at school. To become a priest, I need to better myself, and my grades have gone from like 70s to 90s, so.
I'm kind of going through it now. I've had such a set plan to go to college and to major in psychology and everything. And I mean, I guess since maybe freshman year, I've kind of had like a little desire to be like a missionary and kind of like our spotlight guest, like do a lot of volunteer work, and that's kind of where my heart is. But a lot of people and the realistic side of me is saying like, no, you really need to stick with your plans for college and everything. And so I'm kind of transforming my ideas to be closer to God with what my heart's telling me.
It started off in 9th grade freshman religion class, and I felt myself getting drawn towards God, getting drawn towards the priesthood, and it scared me a little bit. So what I did to try to like stay away, and I tried to go atheist actually, and I went against the church every opportunity I had and all that stuff. But then I let myself feel it and not be afraid of it.
During Lent, I decided that I needed to go to Holy Hour and to spend that time with Jesus in adoration. That's where I actually ended up learning to pray the rosary, which surprisingly I had never known how to do before because I've only ever done it in a group where you just respond. So I think that through that, it opened me to a close relationship with God, both physically and spiritually.
Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't go to Mass a lot. I didn't have a really rock solid faith. But then one of my friends offered to bring me to Mass, and that was kind of like a new option to have a rock solid faith, and now I feel like I have a better relationship with God.
It's not easy a lot of times. We find ourselves conforming to the world and the friends around us.
It may temporarily seem to satisfy us, but in the long run, we usually feel empty, stressed, and sad.
What is required to get us out of the cycle where we were following temptation instead of inspiration?
St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, suggests that we renew our mind.
We have the ability to be renewed in our minds, so we think and then act like Christ.
How does this happen?
We transform ourselves to be like Christ with the help of the Holy Spirit and receiving the sacraments like the Eucharist and reconciliation.
This transformation can be an incredible experience.
Next, the teens on the street tell us of an experience of God's presence and how it brought them closer to Him.
They also share if they have had any experiences where they resisted change, which could have brought them closer to God.
I've never had an actual experience that's brought me closer to God, but when I do go to church, I feel pretty close.
Last summer I had like a very good, like, close experience with God, and I felt very closer to Him. And I felt like I wanted to like change some different aspects about my life.
I've heard people tell me about it, that they've had signs from God and that it brought them closer to have more faith.
When my best friend died in a car accident, and I got very closer to God, and I've been going to church and stuff, and I felt His presence.
I've prayed before, and I feel like some of my prayers were answered. So yes, that brought me closer to God.
I think every day you feel like God's presence and it can bring you closer to Him.
I have not had an experience yet where I've felt God come to me and kind of give me a message or anything like that, but I believe that there's a time for that in everybody's life.
Are there some areas of your life where you might have been resistant to change which might have brought you closer to God?
Yeah, there are times that I'm like resistant to doing things that would like get me closer to God, because you always want to like go out and like have fun and do stuff that isn't necessarily it's kind of like frowned upon by like the church and stuff like that.
Like sometimes you don't want to get up on Sundays and go to church, or you don't want to pray, but I think it's necessary to find the time to do it.
A lot of my friends don't go to church all the time, so Sunday is not a holy day for them. So when I have to go to church on Sunday, sometimes it conflicts with plans that they have, so that's a little bit difficult.
When I was in public school, I really wanted to hide my faith because none of the kids there were religious, and I had put God in the closet, and I said things I knew were wrong, and I just wanted to fit in. And one night I went to adoration, and God just spoke to me and said, just be yourself. Don't try and act differently for others. And the next day I went to school, I did that, and I was wearing a scapular, and everyone looked at me in a weird way, but then I just let that go, and then I accepted myself as who I was as a Catholic. And then over time, people asked me, why do you wear that? And I explained to them, and they didn't give me weird looks. They just let it go, and they accepted me for who I was. So then I felt a lot better, and the school year went a lot easier.
When I was younger, my grandparents moved in with me, and at the time, I had grown up being Catholic, and it was so routine, but it wasn't like fun for me, and I wasn't really interested. And when my grandmother moved in, I would talk to her like every day, and she made it so fun for me and relatable, and she told me stories, and her moving in, like, it made my faith grow so much because I realized that I really liked it. I wasn't just following it because that's what my family did.
Well, when my grandpa was going through a tough time, I started to pray, which I didn't normally do at the time, which became a consistent thing, and it really changed me and made my faith stronger.
One time, my friend and I were hanging out, and we were just riding our bikes around town, and we were so bored we didn't know what to do. It was Saturday, and all of a sudden he said to me, do you want to go to confession? And I was thinking, who goes to confession these days? What is this? Eventually, long story short, we ended up going. He taught me what to say, and he goes, we went to the church, and he points, there's 3 priests. He goes, go to that guy up there. He's like a grandpa. So I go to him. His name's Father Paul. And I just remember, you know how if I confess something to my mom I did wrong, I just like get all shaky, and that's exactly how I was. And he's just like, Nick, relax, relax. And he goes, you know what? Jesus fell 3 times on his way to being crucified. He goes, but you know what he did? He got back up, and you could get back up too, Nick. And it just made me so happy. And I just want to have that same experience and tell someone that, they could get back up too. So that's what really transformed me and changed me into wanting to be a priest.
That's great, Nick. I've had a similar experience. I'm going into my junior year, so I've decided that it's time that I start looking at colleges, and I was looking at one of these brochures for a Catholic college, and I saw one of the nuns in the picture, and she was just so happy, and it got me thinking about it. So I prayed about it for a little while, and I just realized in that moment that I wanted to be a nun, and that's what God was calling me to do.
That's awesome.
Next, Lauren tells us about a transformative experience she had as a Jesuit volunteer.
Let's go to the wall.
The Jesuit Volunteer Corps forced me to live out certain values of social justice and community and solidarity and simple living and spirituality. I was working with teens that were homeless. One of the students, he just had a really bad day. He was kind of the big shot in the class. He had to be the tough guy all the time. So I don't know what his situation was the night before at home. He came in and was just angry at me, and I had work for him to do. And he was like, I've done this work before, I can't stand this, I need something else to do. In my classroom, I had never been disrespected that harshly by my kids. And I realized that maybe I needed to be more present, maybe I needed to break down some of the barriers, and I found him something else to do. So a few months later, I had a new student that came into the classroom, and he was a tough guy, kind of had to show that he was in charge. He, for one reason or another, was angry, and he started to lash out at me. And sure enough, Alex stood up and said, "You don't talk to Miss Lauren like that." She's like, "She'll help you." And the kid sat down. I realized then that I had formed a friendship in a way that Alex had come to respect me because we broke down the walls of our differences. He knew that I was there to love him and help him and respect him for who he was. And so I had to every day go in and be present with the youth that I was working with. And I had to understand who they were and love them for who they were, from no matter where they came from and what brought them to their situation. For me, that was a huge transformation.
All the saints experienced transformation to Christ.
But St. Paul really stands out as one of the early converts.
He went from persecuting and killing Christians
to becoming Christian and leading others to Christ.
Although God did have to blind him for 3 days to get his attention.
The key element, though, is that the transformation could not have taken place without Paul's yes to Christ.
The rest is history. Paul spent the rest of his life traveling all over to spread the good news of Jesus Christ.
Next, Lauren shares with us another more recent transformation she experienced.
It was a moment when she cried out to God, and he answered.
Let's check it out.
There was a talk that was about following your vocation. During the talk, I could really relate to the person that was giving the talk, and in the way that he explained all these talents and gifts that he had been given over the years. He actually had discerned and was going to be a diocesan priest. I left the talk, I was crying and I couldn't help myself. Before that, Father Greg, I spoke to the year before, I had spoke to again that afternoon, and I said, "Father Greg, we went back to our church and we started this young adult community and there's 80 people that are coming, it's amazing, we can't believe it." He just told me, he's like, "Lauren, look at how powerful what you're doing is, and you're doing God's work. I want to challenge you to recognize that and really think about where you're going." So this talk on our vocation really hit home, because in my life I had two things going on at the same time. I was pursuing my career in grad school, which was unrelated to my religion, or so I thought, and then I was pursuing my young adult community. After this talk, I didn't know what to do with myself. It was at this beautiful retreat center, and I ran onto the top of the hill and I just started yelling at God. And I said, "I don't know what you want me to do." I could feel right then that God said to me, "Lauren, you're doing what I want you to do." And I felt peaceful in knowing that I was listening. I was open to the ideas of being a young adult community leader, facilitator at my church group, but at the same time, I could have my career, and that someday they might come together. It empowered me to keep moving forward.
So this year at our youth group at my church, this girl came about the third weekend, and she was like, "I'm not comfortable with being a Christian, and I'm not proud of myself for being a Christian." So our youth group leader was like, "I really don't think you're making the right choice. You should be really proud of yourself. You're a great person." And like over the next few weeks, he didn't just convince her to be a better Christian, he convinced all of us. We were all very proud of ourselves, and so was she.
Yeah, I used to be kind of shamed to express my faith, but after coming to Real Faith and seeing all these teens expressing their faith and being proud of it, it really changed me to be comfortable with expressing my faith.
In the month that I was making my confirmation, I didn't want to do any of the assignments. I didn't want to pick my name. I didn't want to write the letter to the bishop. To help me pick a saint, my parents made me watch a movie on a saint named Bakita, Josephine Bakita, and while watching the movie, I just started bawling. I just couldn't stop crying because it just touched me in so many ways. And then my parents finally realized, and I realized, that she was the right saint for me. And then when I went to do my assignment, what I wrote down was that even though she was an African American person, that she was discriminated against and hated because she believed in God and loved him, and she wanted everyone in the village to believe him too. But through all the discrimination and hatred that she had passed her way, she transformed the entire village, and it inspired me in so many ways.
Next, the teens on the street tell us the role forgiveness plays in transformation.
Let's check it out.
All right.
I think forgiveness plays a large role in transformation because, like, if it's difficult to forgive, like, you're holding up, like, a lot of anger and, like, resentment. And if you want to, like, change and, like, be different, you have to let go of all that.
In order for you to change, you need to forgive yourself for doing something in your past so you can move on.
To move on in your life, you need to forgive people and let go of the past.
I honestly don't know what role forgiveness plays in transformation. Like I said, I haven't really got to that point yet. I just started getting into church lately.
It's a major role. Like, if you're gonna change to be a different person, say like you made bad choices, or someone else made bad choices for you, if you forgive them, like that always changes you.
What are some ways you can continue to allow God to transform your heart and mind?
God transforms my heart and mind every day, praying to him, thinking about him.
Just keep going to church and pray and just try to keep yourself close with him.
To keep an open mind and try to always be willing to grow.
Making an attempt of reading the Bible, praying every night when you go to sleep, things like that, just talking to God.
Probably going to church more often than I have.
I think just allowing God as a part of your daily life, not turning him away, you know, like going to church and praying and not being afraid to share with other people that God is a part of your life.
I can totally relate to what many of them were saying.
Yeah, every day I just try to ask myself, what would Jesus do in different situations? And that's helped me transform myself to be a better Catholic. Next, Lauren tells us how forgiving herself is difficult.
And how the sacrament of reconciliation has helped her.
In times that maybe I wasn't necessarily the best person I could be, I wasn't necessarily mindful of other people, I think forgiveness for me was hard to love myself again and say, it's okay, you're human and you made these mistakes and you are transforming, and you recognize that space in your life that was uncomfortable, or maybe you weren't your best self, but now you can forgive that and move forward. A sacrament that really transforms us is reconciliation. I think that it's a place for me that I've found that I can take a deep breath and say, God loves me. I have a clean slate. My heart is pure again. I'm able to have a conversation with the priest about things that have been hurting me and maybe hurting others, and I'm able to start fresh, ask for forgiveness, and realize that I'm human, and then I can move forward.
When I was doing this Life in the Spirit at my church, and the second to last week, they told us something that we need to do before we're prayed over and told what our gifts of the Holy Spirit are, was to tell the people who we've hurt that we're sorry and to ask for forgiveness and to forgive those that we've hurt. So I had to call these people from my life that I maybe haven't talked to in a while, and I had to tell them that I'm sorry for anything that I did to hurt you, and I hope that you can forgive me, and I forgive you for anything that you did that hurt me. And it really let me open myself up to God and to his forgiveness in my life, and it just was a real eye-opener, and it definitely brought me closer to him and to others.
When my grandpa was dying in the hospital, I almost had like that sort of, love-hate relationship with God. And, it really was when my grandpa finally passed away that I realized God's mercy was greater than I could imagine. I read the prayer card, which really summed it all up. It says, when you were tired, I came to you and gave you rest and brought you home. And I pretty much, at the funeral, I said, I trust you, I love you, I want to be a priest because of this. I want to follow you, and I will always trust in you and love you.
When my dad got diagnosed with cancer cancer for the second time. I was like, God, why are you doing this? I don't deserve this. I've been a good person. I do everything that I think I should, and it's just not fair for this to happen again. And like, so the next week I was mad, and so was my dad was upset too. But then I realized that instead of being mad at God and turning him away from me, like trying to get him out of my life, I realized that if I accept him and bring him closer, that he could help and that this could become a good thing.
If we say yes to Christ, he will change our minds and hearts to be like his own, allowing us to grow in his love and virtue.
But transformation takes commitment to prayer, to the sacraments, and to finding others who also want to grow in faith.
Being open to transformation means being open to change.
And change is never easy.
One thing's for sure, living a life of transformation in Christ can never be dull or boring.
So have you had any transforming God experiences?
We'd love to hear your story.
Contact us at realfaithtv.com.
Or share your thoughts with us on Twitter.
And we'll leave you today with this message from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12.
Do not conform yourselves to this age,
but be transformed by the renewal of your mind,
and that you may discern what is the will of God.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on
Real Faith TV.
God bless.